Hey yo, football fans, it's another great year. Fantasy football fiends, grab your beer. Giving you the best draft tips for all your picks. Starts and sits to the waiver wire fix. From my drafts galore to stats that's hardcore. Triple F does it all, have y'all screaming more. So sit back, relax, let the experts prevail. JT Magnum, Siggy guns never fail. What's up, fantasy football fans? My name is JT Magnum. Welcome back to week 7 of our Stardom Situm show. I got Siggy back with me, and we are going to run into this as fast as we can. We're doing this on a Monday night, so all the players that we list or that we talk about, if there happens to be any injuries or people not playing all of a sudden, just check back with us, leave it in the comment section, ask us questions. But we are doing this Monday night, pretty much right after this Eagles-Giants game that just played out. But the bye week teams this week are the Bears, the Bengals, the Broncos, and the Packers. And I'm going to get right into the injury reports. I have 5 players. One is Marcus Mariota. 2 is Keenan Allen, who looks like he's going to play. Marcus Mariota looks like he's going to play as well so far. Emmanuel Sanders was hurt. I'm not sure about his status, so monitor him because he didn't play the rest of that game. Sammy Watkins was on crutches after his game, and Ryan Matthews, who actually played tonight, I saw him play. He looked fine, but he was listed on the injury report as well. So let's
Robinson, he's hurt for Jaguars.
Which one?
Allen Robinson.
Allen Robinson.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know TJ Yeldon didn't play as well, so those are some players for you to look for. But let's get into rewind real quick.
Them.
Who? Oh, monitor them. Let's get into rewind. I'll talk about my starts from last week. The best start I had last week was Brian Hoyer, scoring 24.22 points. The worst start I had last week was Max Williams, who scored 2.40 points. Honorable mention, Jay Cutler, Torrey Smith, and Greg Olsen all had great games. I had them as starts. For the sits, my best sit of the day was Heath Miller, who only scored half a point. The worst sit that I had was Cam Newton, who actually surprised and beat the Seahawks, and he had 19.76 points. Honorable mention, Antonio Brown. I had him as a sit last week, 2.4 points. Alfred Morris and Jeremy Maclin all bombed out as well. So let's get into Adam and Bagum. Who's your first guy you want to talk about?
Landry Jones, and obviously he came in after Michael Vick got hurt. But Bagum, Ben Roethlisberger is on his way back. There could be a chance that he plays this week. Landry Jones, and Ben Roethlisberger also. Apparently he's going to practice first. But I got a feeling that Landry Jones' shelf life is not going to be good. The matchup is okay, but I wouldn't recommend going out on the waiver wires to grab him. I just think it's a waste.
Yeah, so do I. I think Ben Roethlisberger either is going to play this week, or even if Landry Jones plays this week, it's not worth having him unless you desperately need somebody for one game.
Right.
My guy is Theo Riddick for the Detroit Lions. Amir Abdullah has, since the first game of the season, has not been panning out. He's been having fumbling issues, and Joique Bell is always hurt. So that leaves Theo Riddick, who's been explosive, the only explosive back for the Lions at this point. So right now, with the way they're using him, I say add him, because he's a guy that can get you catches out of the backfield, and along with that, good carries. And he's the only guy they're using right now besides Abdullah, who, like I said, has fumbling issues. Who's your next?
And then my other Adam is or the one other person on the Adam backend that I have as an ad is Stephon Diggs from Minnesota. He just kind of came out of nowhere, and Teddy Bridgewater throwing to him early and often. So there's somebody to look after.
Yeah, and my guy as well, Stephon Diggs. We think alike. Great minds think alike. I say Adam as well. This guy has been on fire. He's had like 200 yards the last 2 games. He's been getting multiple targets, just crazy targets. Mike Wallace hasn't been panning out. Neither is Charles Johnson, who's been off and on injured. And Stephon Diggs is the more explosive player. 5th round pick too, and what a steal for the Vikings. And just like I said, Adam while you got a chance.
Yep.
So let's get into the waiver wire. Who's your 3 waiver wire picks?
Stephon Diggs is one of them. Martavius Bryant for Pittsburgh, and James Starks, believe it or not, he's still out there. A lot of people saw firsthand that it looks like he's a better fit in the offense than Eddie Lacy. And I was high on Lacy this year, but kind of like C.J. Anderson and Hill, for Cincinnati, just these running backs that we thought were going to be great just aren't so far, and it looks like these backups are taking full advantage of it. And I think Starks is going to keep on taking a lot of the share. Eventually, he might be the guy.
Yep, my three guys are my guys are actually some low tier guys who you might want to stash for now because they're not eligible yet. Brandon LaFell I think is eligible. He's one of them. David Cobb and Brian Hoyer, who had an excellent game, excellent past two games for the Houston Texans. But I'll talk about David Cobb. He's the running back for Tennessee. Bishop Sankey, Antonio Andrews, just pretty much anybody's Tennessee has thrown out there has not panned out. They haven't been able to run the ball very well at all. And David Cobb comes in. He's a great scat back. Basically, he's a good, powerful, hard running back, and he's got to get the opportunity to play now too, because right now with those three guys that are going right now, they just don't have any trust in him. It just seems like they're trying anything. And with him coming off injured reserve, I believe he's eligible to play week 9 or week 8. So he might be a guy that you want to pick up now, stash him, and get ready to use him, especially when it comes playoff time for your playoff run. So let's get into the stardom portion of the show. Who's your 3 starts at quarterback?
Brian Tannehill, Teddy Bridgewater, and Carson Palmer. And I'm going to talk about Tannehill. Tannehill, after the break, with the new coach, he actually looks like, the offense is ready to roll. And they have a pretty good matchup against Houston Texans, who's been giving up a ton of yards in the air. I think it's a good matchup.
Yeah, my 3 guys are Teddy Bridgewater, Carson Palmer, and Phillip Rivers. And I'll talk about Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater has been on the last 2 games. Been playing well now that Adrian Peterson is starting to run really well. And it comes hand in hand, the quarterback being able to pass now that teams have to stack the box to stop Adrian Peterson. So guys like Stephon Diggs and Mike Wallace are going to start to see a lot of targets, and even Kyle Rudolph who got a touchdown this past week. Who's your running back starts?
I got Doug Martin, Todd Gurley, and Frank Gore. And I'm going to talk about Frank Gore. New Orleans gives up a ton of yards to running backs. And we saw also against the Patriots, which has an okay defense so far. The Frank Gore, he looks pretty good right now. And I think against New Orleans especially, he's going to be making impact in the air and on the ground. I think he's poised for a big game.
Yeah, Frank Gore's had good games against the New Orleans in the past for the 49ers. My 3 guys are Todd Gurley, Arian Foster, and Chris Ivory. Todd Gurley playing Cleveland, of course. I've told you every week, start anybody against Cleveland. But I'm going to talk about Chris Ivory. This is the hardest running back in the NFL. This guy looks to punish anybody that's tackling him. He's just so hard to bring down. He runs so tough. And New England's defense is not that great against the run. And the Jets' big thing is they love to pound you. They will pound you with Ivory all day. And I see him having a big day at New England.
Hey, I hope so.
Who's your wide receiver starts?
Jarvis Landry, Doug Baldwin, and Allen Hurns. And again, Houston gives up big plays. Landry is a guy that can make big plays happen. I expect this to be a shootout. I don't like Miami's defense, even though they look pretty good. Then again, they were prepared for this game since they were coming off the bye. So against Texans, I think it's going to be more of a shootout. In Miami, weather's nicer. Landry, though, should be having a big game.
Yeah, my 3 are Larry Fitzgerald, Willie Snead, who's been a big surprise for New Orleans, and Eric Decker, your boy from the Jets. I'm going to talk about another Jet. Here's a guy who just recently came off the injury list. He's another one that I think is going to have a good game because New England's secondary hasn't been that good. I actually think this game is going to be a bit of a shootout, even though the Jets have a really good defense. But Tom Brady's been able to, move the ball on the Jets. He's been able to move the ball on pretty much anybody. So I see this game as a little bit of a shootout. But I think Eric Decker is going to have his way with the New England secondary as they're going to try to match up a lot on Brandon Marshall. Who's your 3 tight ends?
Jason Witten, Antonio Gates, and Benjamin Watson. Now, the secret is out on Benjamin Watson. I had him on my FanDuel stuff, for the website of the last couple of weeks. He's obviously the new Jimmy Graham for them. And against the Colts, we saw that they were able to contain Gronk for a little bit, but then he broke it at the end. And Benjamin Watson is somebody they're not going to be paying attention to because he's not the number 1 or 2 option. So I think it's poised to have a very big game against the Colts.
Yeah, but I have Antonio Gates versus Oakland. I have Jimmy Graham as well. Hard to think about Jimmy Graham even talking about him being a start, but he's been so horrible except for the last game that he played. And I have also Ben Watson, who's been a surprise. I thought it was going to be Josh Hill, the man in New Orleans. Instead, it's Ben Watson who's taken over. But I'll talk about Jimmy Graham. The 49ers have given up tons of yards to tight ends and running backs. They've given up a lot of underneath throws. And I think Jimmy Graham with Russell Wilson, the way they're starting to build their rapport, I think they're going to try to get to him very often. And the Niners don't really have anybody that can defend Jimmy Graham at this moment. I think he's actually going to have a really big game in San Francisco. Unfortunately, I hate to say that, but I think he's going to have a really big game against the 49ers. Who's your 3 defensive starts?
I have Pittsburgh, Washington, and Atlanta. I'm going to talk about Atlanta. They're playing Tennessee, and Mariota, I actually think he's not going to play. He apparently has a grade 2 knee sprain, which reports normally indicate that's 2 to 4 weeks injury. So if he does play, he's going to be gimpy, and on top of that, their run game's a mess, and Atlanta actually stops the run. They're not good in the air, but if he can't really protect himself by running or using his legs, he's a one-dimensional quarterback with weak weapons out there. So I think the Falcons' defense is poised for a real big, good game. And even if he does throw, he's been throwing interceptions. He's a rookie. He has a lot of mistakes left in him. And I think Atlanta, they've been taking full advantage of mistakes lately. So I see the Falcons putting up big points.
Yeah, but I have the Seahawks, the Redskins, and the Bills. Talk about the Bills. This game is in England. The Bills have had some tough times. They've had to play some tough quarterbacks, some big offenses the past few weeks. But this time they get Jacksonville and Blake Bortles, who's a little bit turnover prone. The week before he had a great game, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. But last week he showed a little bit more turnovers. The Bills are primed and ready to get all over him, and they ain't gonna be able to run the ball against the Bills. The Bills have not given up really anything on the ground, so I don't think the Jaguars are probably gonna get blown out actually in England.
I don't know. I think Jaguars have a pretty potent offense. I think Allen Hurns is gonna tear them up.
Oh, we'll see. Our first disagreement. All right, let's get into the sit-em portion. Who's your quarterback sits of the week?
I have Josh McCown, Phillip Rivers, and Matthew Stafford, all who had good games recently. I'll go ahead and talk about Rivers since you had him as a start, I think, right?
I did. That's a second disagreement.
There's our second disagreement. They're playing Oakland. Oakland's actually pretty good against the pass, and also it's a rivalry game. And normally these rivalry games, we saw just now with the Eagles and Giants, what it's expected to be a shootout turns out not to be a shootout, etc. And I think San Diego and Oakland is going to be more of a ground and pound kind of game. I see, if Melvin Gordon's healthy, I see more of a battle of the running backs, control the clock kind of thing. I see a low-scoring game, and I think Phillip Rivers doesn't work well when it's like that. He usually has to play great whenever it's high tempo, etc. I think Antonio Gates is still a safe pick on the fantasy side, but I don't think it's going to be a big game for Phillip Rivers. Not what you hope for, anyways.
Yeah, my 3 sits are Colin Kaepernick, who's been hot the last 2 games, Joe Flacco, who was hot this past week against the 49ers, and Blake Bortles, like I said, against the Bills. And I'll talk about Joe Flacco. He's playing against the Cardinals. The Cardinals have been able to stop passers. I know that Landry Jones came in, threw a couple good passes, and Martavis Bryant pretty much did the work for one of those passes, but I don't see Joe Flacco with that offensive line being able to protect them against the Cardinals' blitzing defense, along with, on top of that, having no wide receivers to really throw to except for Steve Smith, who will have Peterson wrapped all over him. They don't really have anybody left and they're not going to be able to run. The Cardinals stuff the run pretty well, and Forset's going to have a rough day against them as well. So I just do not like Joe Flacco this week, especially on the road too at Arizona. Who's your 3 running back sits?
My 3 running back sits are Joseph Randle, LeGarrette Blount, and Melvin Gordon. And I'll go ahead and talk about Blount. Blount is playing the Jets defense, and the Jets defense has been really good against the run this year. And I think Dion Lewis would be more of who New England is going to have to use against this team, because they're not really great at stopping those kind of running backs. They're more of a defense that stops the up and down runners, and that's what Blount is. So I got a feeling LeGarrette Blount's going to have a pretty soft game.
Yeah, I also, too, have LeGarrette Blount. Justin Forsett, as I just talked about, and Lamar Miller, who had actually pretty good game this past week. But I'll talk about Lamar Miller versus Houston. He's just been one of those up and down backs. More on the down this year, especially with last week being on the up. But I still think he's going to go down this week against the Houston Texans defense, hungry, looking to stop some runs. And I think they're going to key all over him to make sure they stop that Dolphin running game with Vince Warfolk, Watt, and Clowney. Who's your 3 wide receiver sits?
I have Julian Edelman, Anquan Bolden, and Torrey Smith. And I'm going to talk about Torrey Smith. I just think that, he needed that revenge game out the way, but now he's back to being a bust. So I think the defense that he's playing against obviously is great, and so I don't think he's going to show up this week.
Neither do I. I have Anquan Bolden as a sit. He has not had a good game against Seattle since I've known him to be on the 49ers. I also have Allen Robinson as a sit this week against the Bills because Stephon Gilmore is all over him. I actually think Allen Hurns will be the guy for Jacksonville as well, like you said. Steve Smith Sr. as well with Patrick Peterson draped all over him. And I'll talk about Allen Robinson. Like I said, Stephon Gilmore has been an excellent corner for the Bills, pretty much their shutdown corner, and he will be matched up on Allen Robinson, and I don't see Allen Robinson being able to shake Gilmore, but I see the other receivers doing some work, so look for Allen Robinson to probably get like a couple 3 catches or so, but not to have one of the good games like he's been having the past few weeks. Who's your 3 tight end sits?
Crockett Gilmore, Kyle Rudolph, and Julius Thomas. And I'll talk about Thomas. Bills stop tight ends. That's where tight ends go to pretty much do nothing. Eifert was able to get a late touchdown to make it decent, but he only had 30 yards. And I think Thomas is going to be the same. We find out that that's going to happen to him too. He's going to be somebody that might sneak in a touchdown, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's just those 6 points only against this defense.
Yep, and I have Julius Thomas as well, Jason Witten, and Zach Ertz. I'll talk about Zach Ertz. He hasn't been really involved too much with the Eagles offense. He had a touchdown like 1 week, I believe, or whatever, but playing Carolina with Luke Kuechly back and that defense playing really well with Thomas Davis, I don't see him being able to do anything, especially on the road with Sam Bradford not being able to complete passes. You saw him today. He was even struggling, yet they scored 27 points, but it was pretty much mostly a struggle all day for Bradford, who was throwing interceptions and fumbling the ball all day. Who's your 3 defensive sits?
Carolina, Miami, and my boys, the New York Jets. And I'm going to talk about why the Jets. We talked about how they can stop the run, their pass defense is great, etc. But there's one person on New England that would destroy the Jets and this defense, and that's going to be Gronkowski. They have no answer for him. There's no defense that can stop him already, and this defense is more stopping a deep pass, short passes, some to a degree, but not a guy like Gronkowski. And I think New England's going to expose that, use them early and often, destroy them. And same with Deion Lewis. I just think the Jets defense is in for a hard day to work. If it is a high-scoring game, they've had the offense to at least try to keep up. But in the end, I think New England is just too powerful. I don't want to see what the final score looks like, and you don't want to see that in fantasy, what the Jets defense would look like in the end.
Yeah, I also have the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Patriots as well, because I talked to you already. I think it's going to be a shootout, but I'll talk about the Dolphins. They were all hyped last week because they had a really good defensive game. I don't see that happening this week against Houston and Brian Hoyer, who is on fire right now. Arian Foster's back there and able to run, and since he's able to run well, now you have Hoyer using play action and throwing DeAndre Hopkins, who's been pretty much uncoverable, and Miami doesn't have great corners at all right now with Grimes being out and a lot of their secondary hurt. I don't see Miami being able to stop Houston either, so look for either a Houston blowout or a high-scoring game in this one as well. So let's get into the sleepers. Who's your 3 sleepers of the week?
Dwayne Harris, Christine Michael, and Danny Amendola. And I'll go ahead and talk about Christine Michael. Word out here in Dallas is that he is going to be the starting running back this week against the Giants. So we just saw DeMarco Murray torch him up. Even Ryan Matthews, the backup, actually had a pretty good game against the Giants. The Giants' run defense, what we thought was pretty good, just wasn't playing really good, I guess, against good running backs, in my opinion. And I got a feeling that Michael might be the guy now, since he's apparently supposed to get the majority of the carries this week against the Giants. I think that this is somebody you should look out for.
Yeah, I have Tyler Lockett at San Francisco. I have Derek Carrier versus the Tampa Bay Bucks, and Christine Michael as well versus the Giants. And I'll talk about Tyler Lockett. He's the guys out of the slot are the problem guys for the 49ers to cover. Those quick pass guys, those guys running those quick screens, those guys that can get deep, fast speed guys that can get deep out of the slot. And Tyler Lockett, I think, usually it's Baldwin who's the 49er killer, but I think besides Baldwin this week, it's going to be Tyler Lockett who gets a lot of deep balls thrown to him. Niners have they have Jimmy Ward in the slot covering. Jimmy Ward's been burned a lot, and I've seen pretty much every game, obviously, this year, and I just don't trust him to be able to take Tyler Lockett out. So if you have FanDuel, especially this week, look for him as a deep sleeper. A lot of people won't pick him, and look for him also for special teams because if you get points for him running back kicks. So that does it for the Stardom Sit 'em Show for Week 7. Don't forget to ask us all your questions in the comment section. Don't forget to go to magnumsportsnetwork.com to check us out there. Also, follow at Siggy V on Twitter and at JT_Magnum816 on Twitter for me. Feel free to ask us all your fantasy questions. I know I announced I wanted some writers on there. I don't need just writers for fantasy football. Everybody's messaged me for fantasy football. If you want to, if you're interested in writing, write me an article. Write me an article or two, just a sample article or two. Email it to me at jtmagnum@magnumsportsnetwork.com. And I will, read them over, check them out, give you my feedback when I see them. And like I said, I'm still working on developing some guidelines and rules for the website so that when I do bring writers aboard, everybody's on the same page. So that does it, guys. Best of luck this week in your Week 7. Like I said, if we named any players that aren't playing or anybody gets injured or something happens, feel free to just ask us in the comment section. We'll let you know what we think. Like I said, we're doing this on Monday night. We're doing this early for you guys so that on Tuesday you have this early, all right? So that's it. Anything you want to add before we jet?
No, check out the website, and I'll go ahead and have my FanDuels of the week. I actually won a lot of money last week with some of these picks that I had last week, so keep an eye on that.
Good job. I actually won money this week. I won $70. I was like, nice. Yes.
I won one ticket, $2. I won $100. So I'm a $2 ticket.
See, FanDuel's where it's at. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and best of luck, and we'll see you next week. Peace, y'all.
Peace.